What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, doing a third in our installment of Necron Warlord guides. Forgive me if I've already done these, but I'll go ahead and check back because these will be the more current of the ones I've done before. So I'm doing deck building guides for the Necron Warlords. I just did Ulthakar and then the Corpse Lord. This is my third. This is going to be... Came out of there. We're going to go ahead and do Manifest Nightmare. This one's a real tricky, weird one. Manifest Nightmare, easily underrated. Not quite as underrated as the Corpse Lord, but you know, more underrated because his ability is spectacularly powerful. That ability being, when defending, if a Necron card does not make an attack, reduce the damage dealt to it by 40%. So every time you take a psychic attack, you just cut it almost in half. If you have a card that only has a melee attack, if it gets shot, it only takes just shy of half. It's super powerful over the course of a game, especially in a faction like Necrons that has such durable cards. You think about every single card that has regen or fear, suddenly that thing is, twice as durable against a lot of bad matchups, or what would otherwise be bad matchups. The downside, of course, is it does nothing in your good matchups. So if you're already a ranged deck, you go up against a ranged deck, it will never trigger. But if you have enough range that your opponent will go ahead and hit you in melee, it will trigger. So it's nice. He is epic. He's the first epic one I've reviewed, and that is a downside because epic cards level extremely slowly. He also has pretty middling stats. Comes in at 24, which is nice and low, but only has around 170 health at this range. And until you get to max level fear, he's not terribly durable. And you see, even then, if I get up to that, he's got 180 hit points and fairly middling attack stats. So he's not one you particularly want to be on the board, but with the combination of that ability and fear, he can be very sticky and not go down easily. So one of the key things about this is you either want to really lean into that ability or not. So of course, if you want to lean into that ability, you'd pick a single attack type, whether it's melee or ranged, and focus just on that, and actively avoid cards that don't have an attack of the other type. So this one, if I get hit with a melee attack, cuts the damage in half. Boom. Which takes a relatively squishy card and makes it significantly more durable. Now, I tend also to sprinkle in cards that have fear, because they, again, are really, really good against psychic, and then they just have good stats on top of that. So like the Nightbringer is one of my favorite cards to throw in there, just because. But we'll go ahead and with something that's a little bit more focused on the ability. I'm going to pick only cards that have no melee stat, just so I can really kind of demonstrate the power of that ability. And you can throw in shields if you want. I like the, what are they, the Death Croissants or whatever they are. The real nasty cards to throw in there. You also do want a little Medicaid to kind of top that off. That one is probably the more expensive one. I don't necessarily want that one. He does trigger the ability, and he's got a nice bonus too, where he's got that range debuff, but he's got range debuff, but also does not have a ranged attack. So that means even when you're shooting, if you're getting shot back, the ranged attacks that come back will be weakened because you have him on the board. So he's a good one to keep in mind. I'll throw in a couple. Yeah, we'll have a little target acquired in there. It's too much. Okay. We'll throw in this guy, who will just be an absolute stick in the mud, and then these guys, who again, Endless is much more powerful if you can have the damage that it takes. So I've only got one Medicaid in here, so I'm really leaning a lot on that defensive ability and hope that I get matched up against a melee opponent. Now, since ranged is, I've said this before, I think that ranged is slightly more powerful in the overall game meta. I think Psychic is a little bit fuzzy, but possibly on top. But pretty inarguably, most factions' most powerful decks are going to be your ranged decks. They have the most powerful cards that do it, most powerful combos. There is no melee equivalent of Barrage, and that's a really, really important piece to keep in mind. Ooh, don't love it. There we go. This, of course, against the Votann Warlord, whose first Votann drop every turn will negate an opposing trait for 3 turns. Gross. Which is long enough that he'll almost certainly take out my little fear guy before he gets fear back, but it's alright. Now, looking at this already, he's going to punch me. Maybe. I don't actually have all that much ranged offense now, so he may shoot me. We'll see. He shot me. So you immediately saw just how much damage was reduced by that trait, and then none reduced over here because this guy shoots back. So, made me dramatically tankier. I would shoot back if I had enough to kill that outright, which I do not. So we'll kind of play this safe, because I do want to compete in the campaign. I've just hit level 20, so this is going to be more challenging than some of the other stuff I've been doing. And this is going to have that. So it's just really nerfing the majority of the damage he wants to deal, and especially since my cards are not attacking back, the ones who are mostly getting that damage resistance. And I hate to play the boring game where I'm just readying all the time, but it's just the smart play here. But so my barge is not attacking back, so it's not taking the damage from attacking. It's also taking half the damage from offense, so it's really just barely taking damage here. And these guys are dealing themselves lethal damage, which is great. Throw again our regen croissant, which will heal a little bit and then also benefit dramatically from the reduced damage ability. Yeah, nice. Okay. And this is, so when I've done like a Necron deck that tries to compete to 3k, it's been something like this, with heavy barrage, all ranged, where if somebody hits me with a melee attack, I just take half the damage. Because some of its hardest counters would be melee, because it tends to be able to outshoot most everything else out there. So you're not really worried about ranged attacks, you are worried about melee attacks. So this is a really good way to, ooh, gross. Wait a minute, really? Wow, okay, alright. I'll put him on the list as one of the warlords that applies to non-faction characters. So his trait does apply even if the card played is not a Votann character. Interesting. It sucks for this little dude. He's going to be over here never ever... Well, maybe. My ranged attack is still scary enough he doesn't want me to... Or he doesn't want to shoot me. So there is every... Nope, there he goes. There we go. He's definitely not going to want to shoot this. Sorry about that. No, let's not do it. Next round, if he hasn't done something dramatic, I probably will go ahead and shoot him. See if he shoots me, if he's built up enough of that. Yeah, there it is. Oof, didn't like that. That's funny. I'm sure I sounded excited about that, and then was like, oh, I didn't want that. But yeah, so my cards on the board are still doing fairly well. It's still looking a little bit thin, but that drop really helped, so I don't have to be particularly concerned about what's coming. Got a level 5 War Speaky, but he's got Psychic. So if he does Psychic, I guarantee to take half of it. And just for kind of laddering tips, the usual AI that plays ladder decks against you is not great at factoring in abilities like Manifest Nightmares. So it's a lot more likely for you to get just wailed on by a psychic deck that might be better off hitting you with melee instead. Worked out for this guy. Does suck I'm losing regen for a couple turns. There you go, buddy. Hit me back. What you got? I have noticed the AI is not great about not killing itself, too. So, bye. But yeah, there you go. That's Manifest Nightmare in a nutshell. You live kind of your entire game on a bit of a sweaty razor's edge, just waiting for some attack to go through that goes through your damage resistance. But as long as you're getting your damage resistance, you get so much more out of the cards you put in that deck that it's certainly worth considering and a really powerful ability. You get to really high level fear, your high level ranged attacks, your high level barrage. That is a warlord who can comfortably get to the top tiers of ladder play. So if you have a high level, oh goodness, what's his name? Manifest Nightmare, certainly worth considering in your ladder decks. Hope that was helpful. I enjoyed making the deck and playing the game, and we'll see who else we get to next.